friends, welcome to our series overview. This month, we're going to be starting a series called Most Likely To, where we're going to be looking and talking all about leadership. When you guys hear the word leader, there's probably a number of different people or faces that come to your mind, like an influential artist or a celebrity or a famous politician, or maybe even a kid in your class who was just voted class president. And sure, all of these people are definitely leaders, but that isn't the only way that we can lead. Great leaders don't necessarily have to have an official position or titles or people who report to them. With God, being a great leader is something that anyone can achieve because leadership is simply being the kind of person who is worth following. You might be wondering how we can do this. Well, in this 4-week series, we are going to be looking at different examples of Jesus, plus ordinary people like Moses, Solomon, the Apostle Paul, who all were given the opportunity to lead and make the lives of other people and make a difference in those lives. And through their examples, both good and bad, we'll see how great leaders are people who are most likely to follow through, who choose to love, who choose integrity and follow God's lead. Let's talk a little bit more about what's specifically happening in each week. In week 1, we're going to be talking about how great leaders follow through. Back in the day, I remember a friend of mine ran for student body president, and in his running, he made a lot of impossible to carry out promises, like having pizza lunch every single day, having no school on Fridays, and these were empty, outrageous promises, but it totally worked in getting him elected. But he never ended up following through. And oftentimes we see this a lot in leaders. And Jesus calls his followers to lead differently. He told a story about a father who asked his 2 sons to do a task. One said that he wouldn't do it, but ended up doing it, while the other one said that he would do it and didn't. And Jesus said the son who changed his mind and followed through was the one who pleased the Father. Following Jesus means understanding that God is asking us to follow through on what God is asking us to do, not just to say the right thing at the right time. We are all leaders who are most likely to change the world in a meaningful way. And when we learn to rely on Jesus and his example, we become who God hopes for us to be. And in this week, I want you guys to remember that great leaders follow through. In week 2, we will talk about how great leaders choose to love. Did you know that no other leader will have the same leadership ability that you do? God has intentionally placed you in places to be a leader to help others see what truly matters to God. And when we focus on what matters to Jesus, there is no stopping what God will do. Jesus came to show us what matters most to God. And it's pretty simple. Love God and love others. He showed us a new way to live centered on sacrificial love, which was always what God's intention was for us. And as we choose to surrender our lives to Jesus and live from his love, we become transformed leaders who create spaces for others to receive that same healing that Jesus offers. When we follow him and focus on what God cares about, we become leaders who are most likely to change the world in ways that Jesus would. So this week, remember that great leaders choose to love. In week 3, we're going to talk about how great leaders choose integrity. We've all been a part of group projects that has one team member who proclaims themselves as the leader and then does none of the work. And it's on the rest of the group to do a bunch of extra work behind the scenes just to make the project somewhat awesome, and hopefully it ends up awesome. And then they come in last minute, slap their name on it, and then get the exact same grade. It happens. We've seen it before. And we all know that that's terrible leadership. Followers of Jesus are called to live differently. Paul, an early church leader, persecuted Christians until he encountered Jesus and he was called to lead them despite his infamous reputation. And so over time, in public and in private settings, he earned the people's trust back by becoming a leader who lived out the things that he came to believe. And as we learn to live from our love for Jesus, just like Paul did, whether it's when we're alone or with others or even at our schools, we become leaders who are most likely to make lasting impacts. So in this week, I want you guys to remember that great leaders choose integrity. And finally, in week 4, we're going to talk about how great leaders follow God's lead. Do you remember what it was like to show up to school for the very first time? Everything was significant and different, and you needed help kind of navigating the newness of it all. You needed some kind of a guide or a map to find your locker, your classes, or even the bathroom. And sometimes being a leader feels just like this. Like everything is new, it's overwhelming, and we need some guidance to get through. Early followers of Jesus were constantly in a similar I'm new to school moment. So Paul wrote them letters that thanked them for being incredible leaders to the other churches that were around them. He reminded them that this was only something that was happening because they looked to God for guidance. Even if they were seasoned leaders who have been there for so long, we all have moments where we feel like everything is new. And when this happens, great leaders learn to trust in God's guidance of His Spirit. And as we learn to follow God's lead, we become leaders who are most likely to make lasting impacts. So this week, I want you guys to remember that great leaders follow God's lead. That's what we're going to be learning for this month, so I hope that you guys check us out in person. I shall see you then. Bye!